It says we're live, Sipple. How about that?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Hold on a second. We're live, but just
Oh, there we go.
There we go. What's up,
Hi, Parker.
Clark?
Clark. Parker is your name.
Welcome in.
Oh,
It's Husker Extra live post game edition from Nondescript Hotel in Iowa City.
It's pretty nice.
Parker, there's Sipple. Husker Extra Live, brought to you by Tom Dinsdale Hyundai of Grand Island. Appreciate that. Sipple, we just watched Nebraska lose 26-20. Good evening, Barry. To Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. I guess while we let people filter in here, and like always, guys, questions, comments, concerns, grievances, holiday wish list, whatever you need, just put it in the comments and we'll handle as much of it as we can. Sipple, what was your overarching takeaway from this afternoon?
Oh, there's a lot. I thought they let one get away. I mean, they have the ball with 2 minutes to go, 2 minutes and 2 seconds to go, and have a down 6 with a great opportunity, and just it kind of ended in a poof, right?
Yeah, it did.
I mean,
because they covered 29 yards in 3 plays. They were down to the Iowa 39-yard line.
Got down to the Iowa 39 with an 18-yard pass to Wandale. Martinez was in charge. He zipped that pass to Wandale, and I thought, okay, here we go. Had plenty of time left on the clock at that point. And then it all just kind of went up in flames real fast. Chauncey Golston, who's been a pain in the neck for a lot of teams, including Nebraska, broke through a senior offensive lineman for Nebraska and forced a turnover. Yep. I mean, yep. There's a lot that haunts Nebraska as usual. Four issues in special teams, about four, I'd say 4 main issues in special teams. They only had 4 penalties, Nebraska, yep. But they were big. Yep. It seemed like every one of them was cringy, Yep. So
5 bad snaps in the first half by our
I forgot the snaps, yeah. The snaps, that stuff, it gets old for Nebraska fans. So that's
let's get to the comments. There's already a lot of good questions in there as I see. Barry, good evening. Trepper says, Michael says technology is advancing past Sipple. Yeah, he had a slight problem in the post-game Zoom. It was no big deal. He recovered.
Very kind.
Like Bill Gates did. Trepper says, it seems like neither quarterback can see or hit a receiver downfield. What say you, Sipple?
We just talked about Adrian hitting Wandale on that 18-yarder. I mean, it wasn't great in that regard, but it wasn't terrible today, I didn't think.
Yeah, I would say that Nebraska didn't really have many opportunities to push the ball way down the field, like over the top, like I thought they did last week against Illinois. I mean,
the only insight I can give you into that is Iowa plays a shell. I mean, Iowa has played a shell for years, since I've been covering it. And I mean, I'm going literally back to 1999 when Ferentz took the job, and Nebraska played them in the 1999 and 2000 seasons. I can remember that discussion that far back. So they don't let you they do a good job of keeping everything in front of them.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, so Martinez, he overthrew one ball on sort of a downfield shot, and McCaffrey did the same early in the game. Martinez overall, this surprised me at the end of the game, Sipple, I have to say. Adrian Martinez was 18 of 20 for 174. Now, like, don't let you guys don't take that as me saying it's all fixed in the passing game. It's not. And that over the top, that true deep threat is still lacking in this offense, definitely. But certainly it was more efficient than it was last week in the pass game. We're not setting a real high bar there in terms of
but you know what?
Standard, but it was better.
I thought Adrian's mechanics looked good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought he zipped a few passes where it didn't look like it. It looked much better than it did against Northwestern. Oh, I think there was progress in that regard, but not. I know, but I know what they're talking about. Not downfield so much.
A couple in a row here that are related. Justin says, "Hi Parker and Sip. So, what did you both think of Frost's excuse for why the snaps were 10 feet over the quarterback's head?" And Josh asks, "There's video of Iowa coaches clapping during the snaps. What a bunch of crap." This gets to the little kerfuffle after the game of Frost saying that someone on Iowa's sideline was clapping to mimic the snap count. That disrupted Cam Jurgens, and Kirk Ferentz saying, among other things, "What the hell are we talking about?" Ferentz did acknowledge that he was approached about that by the official at halftime. Frost said it didn't happen after halftime, so something clearly happened there. There's video of someone on the Iowa sideline clapping rapidly, very much in the manner that Adrian Martinez does it. Personally, and Simple, obviously I want to know what you think too. That might explain the one that Jurgens snapped early before anyone was ready, and it hit Martinez in the shin, and he recovered it at the beginning of that drive. They ended up scoring right before the half. But yeah, I don't think – I could be wrong. I don't know that much about center play, but I don't think that would explain the one that sailed way over Martinez's head.
Right, the errant snaps. That doesn't necessarily explain the errant snaps. I mean, the ones that are to the right, to the shin, or to the foot, whatever. It doesn't really explain that. Now, I do appreciate Frost continuing to ardently defend Cameron Jurgens. Jurgens is a sophomore. Frost clearly is banking on him to become a very good player, maybe he hopes a great player. So he continues to back him. I don't know if that's the sort of thing, talking about the claps, that Frost should maybe take to the media. It might be something that he should take to the Iowa staff and the officials this week. To the head of Big Ten officiating and say, look what was going on. But I don't know if going to the media with it's the best move. But yeah, I'll tell you what, it's not a great look by Iowa either, by the way. I mean,
right. Yeah, no,
it's a little much.
Yeah, it is. And I agree. I mean, I can get on board with the gamesmanship thing. It's gamesmanship for Nebraska to say, hey, they're doing that. Tell the refs that, hey, they're doing that. Put a stop to it. To me, it's a little bit with Frost. I totally understand what you're saying about not having that be something you talk about publicly, but you are a little bit damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? I mean, if it gets corrected in the second half and after the game, all Frost says is we knew what the problem was and we took steps to fix it or something general like that, then we would all say, no, wait a second, can you provide a little more insight into that? Or people would say, what do you mean it's fixed? This has been going on for a year and a half, So it's a weird situation overall.
Hey, you know what we need to mention, though? Jurgens started the second half and had no problems. I mean, he had no snap problems. I mean, the fact that Frost stuck with him tells you a lot. And it actually tells you a lot about Cam Jurgens, that, he sucked it up after Parker, let's face it, that situation is getting to be kind of a nightmare at this point.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And the fact that Frost stuck with him and Jurgens stuck in there and handled it in the second half says a lot.
Anthony says, serious question. How much turnover will there be with the coaching assistants in the offseason? Yeah, Anthony, I mean, way too early to talk about that probably, or to have a feel for how that's going to go. Any more in college football, I mean, you sort of expect that there will be at least some, and that's not because they're underperforming or anything necessarily. I mean, it's just because most staffs do. I mean, Frost's staff was coming from Central Florida. I mean, they talked extensively about the togetherness and the family style coaching staff, and they've had attrition both off seasons so far. So what it looks like, who knows? But I think you would be more surprised if nothing happened, whether that's, Frost initiating a move or someone getting a job elsewhere or whatever. I mean, stuff like that just seems to happen every offseason now at this point. And that's not a Nebraska comment. That's a college football comment. James says, before the angry fire Frost and bashing players comments, how was Austin Allen getting his head bent backward not a penalty? Yeah, that's a good question, James. It looked pretty nasty on the sideline. And when I saw the replay of him getting picked up off the ground and driven into the ground, I was surprised that it didn't get called. The only thing I can think of is that there are a bunch of players around the play, and so maybe the referee couldn't see what was happening, but the line judge should have a pretty good angle on that since it happened right on the sideline. Menon, will we be able to snap the ball in year 4? Yeah, I understand the sentiments. Bigger picture question, Dan says. All right, Sipple, get ready. Do you think Scott will be able to get it done within the time frame of his initial contract?
So, which would be year
7 years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get it done. These are complicated discussions because get it done means different things to different people.
Right.
Can he get this back to where they're a win? Well, let's say this. Can he get it to where they're regularly competing for the West Division, first place in the West Division? I would think so. Now, I guess the one thing you have to add to this discussion is what his boss has said, Bill Moose. And that is you don't judge Scott Frost until his program's established. That means in Moose's mind, year 5. Okay, so we're not done with year 3 yet. So some would say you look for very discernible progress in year 5. And I'm kind of that mind. Although you want to see steps toward it, clear steps before then. And in some ways you are. Frost will tell you that they're definitely making progress. But week to week, it's sort of hard to be adamant about that.
Right, yeah.
Because of the penalties that we talked about, because of the problems on special teams. I don't know. It's a very complicated discussion, and it's great for situations like this.
What needs to change for Nebraska to improve on special teams, punt and kickoff coverage and returns? Yeah, Ross, that was, one of the off-season additions was Jonathan Rutledge as a senior special teams analyst. Not putting it all on him. He coordinates the scheme. Coaches have some degree of and say they're not using their preferred punter. At least that's not what we think at this point.
Daniel Cherney,
because Daniel Cherney, who they gave a scholarship to, is an Australian punter, has been hurt and hasn't played yet this year. Kickoff has been the kickoff units have been unspectacular, although they were really good against Penn State. And Connor Culp has at least brought some consistency to that.
Yeah.
The wind played a factor today, and they were not going to mess around with kicking it down the middle to Amir Smith-Marset, which probably smart. I mean, I can understand the frustration with a pop-up kick that goes to the 30, but you're trading 5 yards there, the 25 to the 30, for knowing that Smith-Marset's not going to get it with a head of steam. The punting game today was really bad. I mean, I was looking at the numbers after the game. Nebraska didn't punt from inside its own 25-yard line, and yet in 5 punts, 4 of them led to Iowa starting at the 35, 40, 44, and the plus 46. I mean, you just can't have that.
They allowed a long return that set Iowa up for a touchdown, a 31-yard return by Charlie Jones. And the punting itself wasn't. It's not up to the standards of a Power 5 program.
29.6 yards net per punt today.
That's not Division I material.
No bueno. Where is Dedrick Mills and Omar Manning? Can we get more specifics? Josh, here's exactly what we know. Dedrick Mills suffered what we think is a right knee injury against Penn State on the first drive. He missed most of that game. He missed all of the Illinois game, but he was on the sideline for it. And he did not make the trip at all today. So it seems pretty clear he's dealing with an injury situation. They've called it an injury situation, so that's what we're led to believe on that. Omar Manning, they have just said the company line has been that they have to get him healthy. And it has seemed Frost has, before the season, used the term healthy to talk about both physical health and mental health. We don't know which one of those necessarily is the issue right now. I think after the Northwestern game, when he played a few snaps, he was dealing with some sort of hamstring injury. The severity of it, I don't know. Whether that's what's keeping him off the field, I don't know. But certainly understand the tenor of your question, because those guys are guys that Nebraska, before the season, you would say they were counting on heavily to be factors in the offense, and right now neither of them are. Yeah,
and they didn't get much from their outside receivers today. Wandale was great today. I don't consider him an outside receiver. He had 9 catches for 75 yards. Then Levi Falk had 2 catches for 22, and nobody else had more than 1 and nothing for over 10 yards. You need more. We talked about that just a little bit ago. You need more from the outside receivers, obviously.
Yep. One big play and we win that game, Gary says, and the conversation changes completely. Adrian played incredibly well. Lots to be optimistic about. There's a different tenor of comment for you, Sipple.
Yeah, you know what? You always have regrets as a writer, as a columnist, and I think I was a little too dour. But, they're 1-4. It's sort of same old.
What I've gathered.
It's year 3, too. I mean, it's year 3. That's the thing.
Just as like a person sitting in the press box watching the game, and then also a lot of the people in my Twitter feed and all of that, I think one of the things, and this you wrote about this, Sipple, in your column, is just like we've sort of seen this movie before, right? I mean, they come out and they play hard and they're in it and they're in the game and all that, and then you're left with this sort of bitter taste at the end of it, and that's it's just happened a lot of times. So I was looking today. Nebraska has played in 15 one-score games. Frost has been in Nebraska for 29 games, and more than half of them, 15 out of 29, have been one-score games. And they're 4-11.
Okay, see, that's a critical stat. Why? Because Nebraska's not good enough to blow out hardly anybody at this point. Right. So I've said it for 3 years. For Nebraska to get where it wants to go as a program, excuse me, it has to win close games. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And why is okay? That discussion is always interesting to me. People say, "How do you get better at close games?" No easy answers. In fact, there's no real formula, because the games all take on different shapes. It's not. I'd like to say it's play calling down the stretch. It's not always that. I mean, I don't think Nebraska had bad play calling in the last 2 minutes. In fact, I thought it was good.
Right.
Different things happen in different games. It comes down to a lot of those stats just come down to the good teams find a way. And You know what else it comes down to? No, the one thing you can say, Parker, okay, I'll tell you, there's one thing you can say that makes a lot of sense in that discussion.
Tell me, please tell me.
You have difference makers on the field.
Yep.
Chauncey Golston is a difference-making type player.
Yes.
And he made a difference-making play. He found a way. And that's on both sides of the ball. I mean, there's offensive players like that. Nebraska's had them in the past. I think Wandale's basically that. But Nebraska probably doesn't have enough of them.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think part of the any team's fans would be, not happy with 4-11 in one-score games. But I think it's probably amplified with Nebraska because the 3 stalwarts in the division Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Iowa all excel in those kind of games.
Yeah.
And so the path to winning the division or competing for the division isn't just about talent, accumulation. Of course, that matters. And it's not just about having great quarterback play. That matters, obviously. But it's about being the sort of program that when kickoff rolls around that you're just in it for 60 minutes. It's what's coming.
And those teams also don't beat themselves, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well, not as much, right?
Not as much. Related question, Brent, do we blitz or ever get a pass rush? Yeah. Nebraska has blitzed some this year, not a lot. I don't know what their rate is. I feel like it might be down slightly from the past 2 years. They haven't got enough of a pass rush. Casey Rogers had a sack on the last play of the first half, and that was Nebraska's first sack against Iowa since 2016. Does Ramir go back on a milk carton? Chad, I don't know. He made a couple of plays today. Obviously, had the touchdown run.
Why would he go back on a milk carton?
I don't know. They went to him. He ended up playing, I think, kind of down the stretch. I'll have to see when I watch it back here tonight. But I think he was it was Marvin Scott early, and then it was Ramir Johnson as the game went on. So
yeah, 5 carries, 23 yards. I thought Ramir looked pretty good on a couple runs. No, I don't think he's back on I don't think he's on a milk carton now. I don't.
David says, please tell me one of you will ask why they don't play McCaffrey at receiver or running back like they did against Ohio State. Takes the pressure off Adrian. Need playmakers on the field.
Well, he's a quarterback. And Frost has been very explicit in that. That's the best answer I can give you. I agree. By the way, I tend to agree with that. We said going into the game that I thought the best way to do it was like they did against Ohio State.
I'm surprised we haven't seen it since Ohio State, honestly. Those guys know a lot more about offensive football than I do, obviously. But I'm a little surprised we haven't seen it since then. Simple, this one's for you. Trepper asks, how has there been no improvement from a veteran offensive line?
That's one of that's sort of what I asked Frost. Now, Frost, I would say, indicated that he wasn't displeased with the offensive line today. And what Nebraska finished with yardage-wise?
338.
Yeah, not bad. They ran it 38 times for 143 yards, which is, almost 4 a carry, which isn't terrible against that front seven.
And then
I thought it'd be farther along. I did. Come on. When I asked Frost about the offensive line, what I had in mind, Parker, were the snaps and the penalties and giving up that late sack.
Yep.
The snaps, the penalties, critical penalties down the stretch on 2 young guys. Critical, both of them. Put you behind the sticks when you're fighting for yards. And then, you got a veteran lineman who allows a late sack. Yep. Those are all issues. That's what defines an offensive line, is those things not happening.
100%.
So that's what I was getting at, Parker.
Yeah, and someone mentioned this earlier. I didn't get to the question, or someone just mentioned that Bennert holding call was a killer, and it was. I think Juergens probably would have got flagged if Bryce didn't on that, on the big play to Wandale. And then the thing that is so disheartening if you're Frost, or especially if you're Matt Farniok, about that pressure late, is Nebraska was really good in pass pro in the drop back passing game. So a lot of the times when either Adrian or Luke ended up sort of scrambling around, it was after 3 seconds or something like that. At first, there were a lot of clean pockets in the drop back passing game today. And one of the only times there wasn't was on that one in the final minute 20, which, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Well, Parker, I don't know.
Good teams make plays when the game's in the balance.
Yeah, I don't look at it like it's the way the cookie crumbles. You don't let the cookie crumble.
Keep the cookie together.
Yeah, you're playing games to win, man.
100%. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that you have to protect in that scenario. Change my mind, keep Frost, but I want to see his inner Bo Pelini come out, Mike says.
He has a little bit of that in him.
He does.
He reminds me of Bo in a lot of ways. He keeps it more appropriate.
What's your panic mode set at? Tyler asks. Never panic.
Can't really panic. If you're asking level of concern with direction of program, I'm still assessing whether he can pull this thing out of that tailspin. We got some sky left, we got some time. We got some time before ground. You know what I'm saying?
The darkness hasn't completely closed in. We're not completely ensconced by darkness.
Right. So no, that's the best analogy I can come up with is it's in a tailspin. It is. That's the way I describe it. And I want to see if he can pull that plane out of it. And I still give him a chance to do that.
Ground's coming up at like 700 miles an hour.
Next year. I think next year is when you start getting a little worried.
Why did Frost go to the well already with the Nebraska has doubted me before crap? Why does he hesitate to own this?
I don't know why he plays that card a little bit. It doesn't bother me so much. that was an important time in his life, and it was tough. There's no doubt about that. I don't know what people think about when he says that. What I think about is 19-0 in the desert when they lost to Arizona State in 1996. He was under a lot of fire as a quarterback and early in the 97 season. And that all I would say, Parker, is it was an important part of his life. So that's probably, and you know what? He draws on it, as a lot of people do. A lot of people go back to that sort of stuff. Who was that Lakers guard? Derek Fisher hit a huge shot in the finals one year, and he still draws on that for confidence. Yep. So a lot of athletes do that.
I think, it's funny because I think it's been probably on his mind more recently too. Not to play psychologist too much, what do I know? But he's mentioned 3 times in the past 10 days or so about Adrian getting benched and there being doubt and responding to that doubt. And each time he's talked about that, he's gone to his own experience in a similar situation. And so I think that period of his playing career probably is even more at the forefront of his mind now. He's watching one of his own guys go through it.
I think those moments can be defining for people.
Troy says, same color wall and trim. Are you guys in the same hotel room? No, adjoining. Well, not even adjoining. Rooms that are next door to each other in the hallway. Randall says, is Greg Austin's job on the line or what? 5 starters back and they get worse up front. Randall, I think everyone's job's on the line all the time. I guess that's the way I would put that.
Parker, do you think they've gotten worse up front?
From the way they played the last 3 games last year? Yeah. I think they've protected pretty well, but it hasn't done a lot of good because they don't have much of a passing game. And yeah, they're not moving people in the run game like I sort of thought they'd be able to. And like I really thought they'd be able to after watching the opener against Ohio State.
The penalties too, Parker, the penalties.
Yep. First time in 15 years I actively didn't watch. Sounds like another Groundhog Day game. Alex, what did you do? I'd be curious about that. Not that there wouldn't be better things to do, but
it was a good game. It was a good game.
Hey,
Nebraska played well in a lot of ways. They did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I pronounced Trepper's name right. Nice. He says, "Shut up, Sipple." Delancey in the transfer portal. Are coaches targeting the wrong guys or doing something wrong when they get to campus? Ryan, gosh, we could do a whole one of these on just that question probably. The prevailing wisdom, and Travis Fisher talked about this earlier in the fall because 3 of the guys he recruited had left. Now it's 4. About how difficult the pandemic has been on a lot of the young players. The college experience is nothing like what they signed up for at this point. Lincoln is nothing like what they signed up for at this point. That's the same pretty much across the country, especially if you're playing football. But it's not just that simple. Identification and of guys that fit your culture is always important too. And I really try to stay away from the if a guy transfers, then he didn't fit the culture. I don't believe that. I think that sometimes guys have their own reasons, but certainly it's eye-opening that 4 guys from Florida, 3 of them from Miami, have left during their true freshman year, and in 3 of those cases before they ever even played it down here. So it is what it is. I mean, they have a guy committed right now, an outside linebacker from Miami, Patrick Payton, who is really good. I mean, he's a really, really talented high school player, and he's exactly what they wanted outside linebacker. Should they not recruit him because he goes to Miami Northwestern? I just don't think you can operate like that. But clearly you got to find the right guys. I mean, there's nothing new in that. Let's see. A couple more guys, and then we're gonna get. Let's see. Okay. With the Huskers sitting at 1-4, should they use the rest of the season to develop young talent or put in the best players to attempt to win the last few games? Sipple, answer Chris's question.
Oh, you can. I think you can accomplish both, but I think for the veterans' sake, you stay with what you're doing. I don't think you can. I think about the veteran players with that question. No, I think those guys have paid their dues, and a lot of them, let's face it, are playing pretty well, right? On defense, just start up front. Stilley's has had a good season, a very good season, probably his best season. And Will Honus is having a good season, right? Yeah, I don't know what Honus did today, but I know he hit some people because he lays.
Yeah, he did. He had 7 tackles. Here's a good stat for you, Simple. He had 8 tackles, and Luke Reimer had 12. So they combined for 20 tackles, and of those 20 tackles, they were credited with 18 of them being solo. 7 out of 8 for Will Honus, 11 out of 12 for Luke Reimer. They were one-on-one with the running backs a lot.
And then in the back end, Markel Dismuke made a huge play late. I mean, to stop that, I think it was Tyler Goodson on a 3rd and 3, I think it was. You remember that play?
Yep. Yeah.
Dismuke came downhill, and Honus finished it off. 2 seniors. Deontay Williams has his moments. He plays well. Boodle got his first interception today and plays solid. He's a good corner.
This is their best offensive lineman. Stoll is on the comeback trail from injury.
Yeah, I don't like that conversation of going to a youth movement late. No, for those seniors' sake, you got to win games. Especially
because some of those seniors, this will be a conversation over the next month or so. Some of those seniors could be back next year too because of the
they could, yeah.
Rules. Will the Huskers win another game this year? Nick says.
Oh, I think they have a great chance against Purdue. Here's the thing, trying to hold on a second. People texted in.
Oh, that was the boss. That was the boss.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing by way of insight. It does not seem at all like Frost has lost that locker room. I mean, there's no indication of that. The guys sound like they have a lot of resolve. Certainly the head coach does. And I think the team reflects it. I think the team has good leadership. Good leadership in terms of, I think the culture is improving. People hate that word, by the way. A lot of people do. But they're playing hard. Hey, they played hard today. They slugged with Iowa. And that's what Frost was talking about. That's why he was happy. It's just those mistakes, the same mistakes over and over.
I think part of the reason it was I thought part of the reason why he was so emotional after the game today was because for the first time all year, the offense didn't play great, don't get me wrong, but Iowa's defense has locked up people for the last month. And for the first time this year, they got the offense and the defense playing relatively well at the same time for stretches of the game. They executed in situational football for the first time, literally, that I can remember since I've been on this beat, where they scored before halftime, got the ball back, scored again. All of those things are things that good teams do to win games. And then special teams really just bit him in the ass so hard. And I just really, you could tell that he was really bothered. by that. Kansas Husker, we talked about Omar Manning earlier. All we know is that they've said he has not been able to get healthy. He was on the sideline last weekend for a home game. They can only bring 74 guys to road games. He was not on the trip this week. One more for the road, Sipple. Let's see here. The talent is coming up at wide receiver. Luke has a lot to work on with his passing. Okay, yeah, Brandon, quarterback rundown. All right, end on this one, Sipple. How can you say the culture is improving when 1 week ago, after one victory over a winless team, they effed off at practice all week, which led to an embarrassing loss?
Well, he caught me. I'd say the who was that?
That was Matt.
Matt, nice question. I mean, that's the only way I can explain it is it's not a pattern. It's not. I mean, I would say this season you haven't seen Nebraska in that mode except for one game. And that happens to Alabama. Alabama comes out flat once or twice a season. The best teams do. So the worst teams do too. It's just more pronounced when they do it. And that was hey, Matt, I will give you this. That was an awful loss to Illinois. I mean, and I think Frost probably feels somewhat emotional and has a little more resolve and fire today because this was kind of affirming to him maybe. That he believes in this team and their usual intensity level, and he saw it today. Maybe in the back of his mind he was a little worried about it after the Illinois game, and today's not worried about it.
Yeah, well, but then that goes back to what he said is they were having what they said was a good week of practice this week, which is. You just absolutely cannot do that, especially if you're not overwhelmingly talented. You cannot, when you have a chance to win a game, like Nebraska could have beat Illinois, right? They could have. They're capable of doing it, but they didn't. And when you give away chances to win games in the Big Ten like that, that's obviously no good. And they missed a chance to win a game for a very different reason today. So
you know what I appreciate, Parker? I appreciate that Frost acknowledges how buttoned up is the way he put it. Buttoned up Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Iowa are.
Yeah.
I'm glad he acknowledges that. Those programs they don't have a ton of talent. Northwestern's not a real talented team. I mean, they're talented in their own way, but they don't wow you with skill guys, but they're buttoned up. They're tough and they don't make a lot of mistakes, and they make you make mistakes.
We're buttoning it up for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. There's way more questions and comments than we could get to. We've had a ton of people watching tonight. So thank you very much. Keep coming back. We will be back to the regularly scheduled Thursday Facebook Live next week. We're going to podcast on Wednesday. We'll have all kinds of stuff between now and then. You can follow Chris Bazinet for Hoops against North Dakota State tomorrow. So we got a ton of stuff from the game and obviously going forward. For you to check out at huskerextra.com. Please consider subscribing. Also, like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. For Sipple and Parker, thanks for watching.